Hey everybody, Nick Espinoza, your chief security fanatic here, and today we are actually talking about the White House because the White House just emboldened federal agencies to enforce antitrust laws. I kid you not. This was actually really surprising to me. It's coming from TechCrunch, and I think this is going to be really underreported in the amount of news that goes on day to day. The Biden administration just introduced a sweeping, ambitious plan to forcibly inject competition into some of the most consolidated sectors of the American economy, including the tech sector, which is the most prominent sector in this plan, through an executive order. Now, this order, which Biden is supposed to, and I believe did sign today, initiates a comprehensive quote-unquote whole-of-government approach that loops in more than 12 different agencies at the federal level to regulate monopolies, protect consumers, and curtail bad behavior from some of the world's largest corporations. In basically the fact sheet that was released on this, the White House lays out its plans to take matters to regulate big business into its own hands at the federal level. As far as tech is concerned, that comes largely through emboldening both the FTC and the Justice Department, two of those federal agencies with antitrust enforcement powers. Now, most notably for big tech, which is already obviously bracing for regulatory threats and all of that, the White House explicitly asserted here that those agencies have legal cover to, quote, challenge prior bad mergers that administrations did not previously challenge. So, for example, unwinding acquisitions that built a handful of tech companies into the massive corporations that they are today. Think Facebook consuming Instagram, Google consuming a whole bunch of stuff, Amazon consuming half the planet, etc., etc. This order calls on antitrust agencies to enforce antitrust laws vigorously. Now, federal scrutiny will prioritize, and I quote, dominant internet platforms with particular attention to the acquisition of nascent competitors, serial mergers, the accumulation of data, competition by free products, quote unquote, free products, and the effect of user privacy. Facebook, Google, Amazon, and some others are particularly on notice here, although Apple isn't likely to escape federal attention either. Apple, obviously, their primary platform is selling you that iPhone, that iPad, services like that go along with it, such as the App Store, etc. They're not going to they don't have the same privacy issues as Facebook, Google, and Amazon does, but they are definitely not out of the gun sights here, apparently according to this executive order. Now, the White House also specifically singles out internet service providers for scrutiny, ordering the FCC to prioritize consumer choice and institute broadband nutrition labels that clearly state speed caps and hidden fees. The FCC began working on these labels in the Obama administration, but that was stopped after President Trump was elected, and Ajit Pai, the former head of the FCC, took over there, obviously more pro-big business on the Trump administration side. Now, this order directly calls on the FCC to restore net neutrality rules, huge fan of that, which were stripped in 2017. Obviously, that I have done a lot on that, so I'm not going to get into that, but I am so glad to see net neutrality come back and be enforced. The White House will also tell the FTC to create new privacy rules meant to guard consumers against surveillance and I quote, the accumulation of extraordinary amounts of sensitive personal information, which free services like Facebook, YouTube, Google, etc., have leveraged to build those massive data collection empires. Now, the White House also is tapping the FTC to create rules that protect smaller businesses from being preempted by the large platforms. That really dovetails with net neutrality, in which many cases abuse their market dominance with a different sort of database surveillance to essentially outcompete the new startups and up-and-coming competitors. Finally, excuse me, this executive order encourages the FTC to basically put right to repair rules in place that would free consumers from the constraints and that essentially discourage do-it-yourself and third-party repairs. A new White House Competition Council under the director of the National Economic Council will coordinate the federal execution of those proposals laid out in this new order. And I recently did a right to repair video where we are seeing an actual law winding its way through Congress on that. Apparently, President Biden is just preempting that and going ahead and doing this. But I'm hoping that a lot of what the president just signed as an executive order is actually going to happen. we are talking about potentially putting a check on the massive growth and the competition quashing practices and tactics of an Amazon or a Facebook, not to mention the fact that we are being data mined to the nth degree, that privacy is essentially secondary to the billions that they can make just selling your data to the highest bidder. These things are, quite frankly, music to my ears. I'm very surprised to be hearing these things. We will see if this comes to fruition. We will see where the opposition is. Obviously, as just being a capitalist myself, I believe in that growth, but I also believe in competition. I believe in an equal starting line. I do not believe in an equal finish line. And so I'm going to see where this plays out. I think this is really interesting. This is surprising. And if you combine this with the other executive orders that have been coming out, especially earlier this year, on the cybersecurity side, with President Biden just executing an order that said within 90 to 120 days, all the federal agencies need to be stepping up their game on security, reporting of security incidents, and all that kind of stuff. This is great. I mean, this looks like it's going to be protecting privacy here in the United States. I have been rallying and calling and advocating for a GDPR style, that GDPR is the General Data Protection Regulations in the European Union, that gives EU citizens this right to privacy. California spun something up, and various states have done their own iterations of that, but an actual federal law would be great. And I think while it's fine that it's coming through an executive order, executive orders obviously, especially in the age of partisanship where Congress can't get on the same page, have been used to try to circumvent things like the filibuster or laws that have not been able to pass because they're being stalled in Congress or the Senate. We saw that in the Senate for years and years, especially with cybersecurity bills. That was very concerning to me, especially before the last election. This is kind of circumventing that, but I would love to see these actually have bipartisan support, basically saying, yeah, this executive order makes a whole bunch of sense. Let's come together. Let's trust each other. Let's vote on this. And we're going to give these citizens, meaning you and me, if you are sitting here in the United States as a citizen, essentially your privacy back in many ways. And a lot of people think, well, that ship has sailed. We give away our data so much. But the point is that your data ages, which is why the newest and freshest data in the dark web is the most expensive, and I can just get free passwords that are like, a couple months old, year old, whatever that is. As we move, as we grow, as we change addresses and information and data and all that kind of stuff, our data gets old. So we can start rebuilding that privacy from ground zero right now, and a lot of people don't understand that. So this is obviously a huge, huge thing. We're going to see where this goes. I'm very curious to see the competition, or rather, I should say the opposition to this, which potentially could create a competitive law or rule or something, or simply do nothing. Obviously, there's going to be a good part of the population that simply says, well, it's coming from this White House. This guy is awful, for whatever reason, so I'm not going to believe it. But I've got hope here. I'm hoping that this, this goes through. This is not a partisan thing for me in any which way, shape, or form. I don't care if you love or hate the guy. You've got to love that he's trying to put a Facebook in check. That's amazing, not to mention the right to repair. I'm sure there's going to be a lot of consternation with that, but these third-party shops is going to be a boon to small business that, they are equipped and more than capable to, let's say, disassemble your iPhone and fix that screen for much cheaper than Apple you'd have to pay Apple for. That's a huge thing. That really is a huge thing. And I'm sure there are going to be a lot of people that try it themselves and break the heck out of their iPhones and void their warranties and all that kind of stuff. There's no doubt that that's going on. But that really is a boost for consumers in the long run. So I'm curious to see where this plays out. I'd love to hear your thoughts on this because I think this is a really good thing. And so that is your news of the day. And please like, share, follow me here on Facebook and Twitter at NickAESP, which hopefully may soon be broken up or at least put in a check. And please feel free to subscribe to me at YouTube as well, which also is probably going to be broken up or at least put in check. And as always, stay safe, stay online, and please stay private. And hopefully this new order helps. Thanks.